Now we are going to see the topic about system testing overview. System testing is defined as a test phase which tests both functional and non-functional. In non-functional, it performs various different testings, namely performance, scalability, reliability, stress, interoperability, and localization. Performance is nothing but response over time, and scalability is maximum capability of the system parameters. Reliability defines functions repeatedly for a period of a time. Stress, system does not break down. Interoperability can exchange information given in the testing. Localization, localized products works in different language is known as localization. Next one is a functional testing. In functional testing, it has various testing, namely design, business vertical, deployment, beta testing, certification standards, and testing for compliance. First one is design or architecture. To check the actual product level test cases is known as design. Business vertical, verifying the business operations and usage. Deployment, utilizing the resources and setup available. Beta testing, sending the products to customer and receiving the feedback is known as a beta testing. And the last is one certification, standards, and testing for compliance. Certification is to infrastructure pieces need to be certified. And then standard defines standard are properly implemented, and testing for compliance, product testing for contractual, legal, and statutory compliance. The statutory compliance is known as compliance to FDA, 508 accessibility guidelines, SOX, OFAC, and Patriot Act. Compliance to FDA is test reports along with the complete documentation. 508 accessibility guidelines refers requirement for its only physically challenged, and an SOX is nothing but Sarbanes-Oxley Act's financial fraud in the organization. OFAC and the Patriot Act is misuse of funds for terrorism. Next topic is functional versus non-functional. In functional, it has various behavior, which one first one is known as product functionality and futures, and it helps in verifying the various projects. There must be a clear expected result. Various testing may act in the functional testing. In previous we have seen, and then there are two obvious problems in the functional testing. They are known as duplication and gray area. Duplication defines same test performed multiple times is known as duplication. Gray area defines a test is missed out. And non-functional, product quality factors, complexity knowledgement requirement, and effort needed. It involves time, effort, and resource more stringent exit criteria, better planning. Setup configuration must be involved in a non-functional testing. These are the functional versus non-functional. So next we are going to see about why is system testing done. To provide an independent perspective in testing, bring in customer perspective in testing, provide a fresh pair of eyes to discover defects not found earlier by testing, test product behavior in a holistic, complete, and realistic environment, test both functional and non-functional aspects of the products is known as both phases, and build confidence in the product, and analyzing and reduce the risk of realizing the product. These are the certain things that why system testing is done. So the next one is acceptance testing. It is a phase after system testing that is normally done by the customers or representative of the customer. These test cases are black box type of test. It has three types, namely acceptance criteria, selecting test cases for acceptance testing, executing acceptance tests. In acceptance criteria, it performs three ways, which are known as product acceptance, procedure acceptance, and service level arguments. Product acceptance. Requirements is associated with acceptance criteria. All requirements should pass 100%. These are modified and maintained. And second was in procedure acceptance. It is based on the procedure followed for delivery, administration, and troubleshooting part of the release source code. Build scripts to be delivered in a CD. 20 employees are trained. Service level agreements, we can also say SLA, signed by the customer and product organization. Defects. There are some defects need to be fixed free of cost. Implemented system should be less than 0.1% Defects are fixed within a 48 hours. So next one is selecting test cases for acceptance testing. Acceptance testings are selected from the existing set of test cases from different phase of testing. There are some points which are involved in this type of acceptance testing. They namely end-to-end functionality verification, domain test, user scenario test, basic sanity, new functionality, a few non-functional tests, test partition to legal obligations, and service level acceptance test data. So end-to-end function defines all the business transactions are tested. Domain test defines business domain knowledge are included. User scenario test defines a test cases that portray them are included. Basic sanity test. This system performs a basic solutions and operations. New functionality defines focus on verifying the new features. A few non-functional tests defines double check that the non-functional aspects of the product. Test pertaining to legal obligations and SLAs defines a check if the product complies with the certain legal obligations. Last one is known as executing acceptance test. This is the day-to-day activities of the product usage. 90% processing knowledge of the product, 10% technical testing team must be allowed. This testing is not much compared to other phase of testing. Defects are generated on the periodic basis. Next topic is about summary of testing phases. The purpose of this section is to summarize all the phases of testing and testing types we have seen so far in different chapters. There are three types, namely multi-phase testing model, working across multiple release, who does what and when. In multi-phase testing model, it has two type of criteria, namely two strict entry criteria, two mild entry criteria. First one is having two strict entry criteria solve this problem, but lack of parallelism in this case creates a delay in the release of the product. These two extreme situations are depicted in this figure. And the next one is the team performing the earlier phase has the ownership to meet the entry criteria of the following phases. This is also depicted in this picture. Working across multiple releases, as explained, the earlier separate test teams for each phases of testing increases effectiveness. It also creates an opportunity for a test team to work on the multiple releases at the same time. This way the test teams can be utilized completely. For example, when criteria is met for a component test team, they can get onto the next release of component testing, while the integration and the system test teams are focusing on the current release. This is one way to reduce the overall elapsed time for releases, exploiting the overlap and parallelism among the test phases. These are the such information about system and acceptance testing.